Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. I'm Movie Miss, one of the co-hosts of the great podcast about bad movies called Let's Talk Turkeys, where you'll find our format is a bit different than the other talking head programs you're used to. I'm a Gen Xer. My co-host is a millennial, so we're usually on the same page, but we do occasionally agree to disagree, and we always have a good laugh. Join us as we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of cinema. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find quality podcasts.
Hello, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another spooky episode of Weird Mythic Podcast. Now, at the beginning of the episode from last week, I said I was trying to do the video, trying something new. Obviously, the video was not working. I was unable to try. I was trying to use my iPhone, and it's a nice phone. I got a good one, but it just didn't want to record for that long for whatever reason. I plan on investing in a new camcorder. I honestly haven't bought a camcorder in over 10 years. So I'm trying to do some research to get the best camcorder that I can get. And I plan on getting one in the next few months. And I want to get like a really good setup instead of like I move around in my apartment when I record. Like I have like a desk and a chair and everything, but it's not really set up in a good spot. So, new things are going to come for 2024. So when I was writing out today's episode, I was in the middle of watching Grim Cuddy. And if nobody has seen that, I think it's Netflix. Go check out Grim Cuddy. It's freaking creepy. And I love movies that show the monster. I got to see the monster. Even if it's at the very end and you finally see it, it really makes the movie for me. So go check out Grim Cuddy if you haven't watched it. Other movies that I've watched, because now I have them listed, guys. Like last episode, I was just kind of going off the top of my head. But I finally went through and, decided to write down, well, not write, but put it in my phone. So here's all the movies I have watched so far for October. All right, you ready? Saw 2, Annabelle, Blood Red Sky, which if no one has seen Blood Red Sky, it's about vampires on an airplane. Go check it out. The Haunting, the one with Lily Taylor and Liam Neeson. The Pope's Exorcist, great fucking movie. The Hauntings of Bly Manor and Hill House. I watched Deliver Us from Evil. Oh my gosh, I freaking love this movie so much, and it is based off of a true story, so I might have to include that somewhere into the show. Amityville, which I think I mentioned last time, the one from 2005. Incarnate, this is from 2016, and it's on Netflix. Go check it out. It's a foreign film. I'm a huge fan of foreign films. I will watch it dubbed, subbed over. I don't care. Go watch The Boogeyman, great movie. Autopsy of Jane Doe. Appendage, very strange movie and new. I think it's on Hulu. Of course, The Babadook. I've watched it so many times. The movie No One Will Save You was very interesting. And one of my all-time favorite movies from 2013 is Cabin in the Woods. It's like a classic. Everyone should see that movie. I did watch the final Insidious, and I did feel it was a good way to end the show. So go check out the new Insidious movie. And then I also had to watch Insidious 2 before that. Evil Dead Rise. Oh my gosh, I'm such a big fan of the Evil Dead movies. Like, ridiculous. I love Bruce Campbell, and I love the fact that he's in the Spider-Man and Marvel movies. Freaking cracks me up because all of us fan people are always like, oh my gosh, is Ash gonna be in the new Marvel movie? No, they can't put Ash in a Marvel movie, but it's a lot of fun to think that he might. So everyone, if you haven't seen Evil Dead Rise, go check it out. And of course, us with all Jordan Peele, everything Jordan Peele, everything. I think he has a brilliant mind for movies and ways to really scare people and make you think. So if you haven't seen Us, or you haven't even seen Get Out, or what is the new one with the aliens? I can't remember off the top of my head, but go watch all of them. Go watch Ghost Ship. It's an older movie. It came out when I was in middle school, and I still watch it every year. Freddy vs. Jason, because you just got to. Nightmare on Elm Street, the very first one, because it is my favorite. I've watched The Conjuring 3. 13 Ghosts, the newer one. Well, I guess it's not newer, but everybody, you should know 13 Ghosts. Oh my gosh. I've been binge watching celebrity ghost stories any chance I get. I watched this new movie called The Apparition. I watched Sleepy Hollow because, Halloween, and love me some Johnny Depp. Blade Trinity, and of course Grim Cuddy. The Fourth Kind, which I know it says it's based on a real story, and then you do research and it says it's not, but Nome, Alaska has some shit going down. So I'm going to say that The Fourth Kind is more real than not. I watched Jeepers Creepers Reborn. I love the first two Jeepers Creepers, and honestly, Jeepers Creepers Reborn was kind of disappointing. The last 15 minutes of the movie just basically made no sense to me. I watched this new movie called The Influence, and then I watched Veronica. Now, I've seen Veronica a few times. It is a Spanish movie, and as I watched it, I realized that one of the little sisters in Veronica is the daughter in The Influence. So I hope that little girl is going places because she's a great actress. So with all of that, I have watched 33, if not more, scary, horror, thriller, sci-fi movies for all of October, and I got a good week left. So let me know what movies you guys like to watch during this spooky Halloween season. Send them over into weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com or just put it in the comments below. But I would like to see if anybody has any recommendations on other movies that are Halloween themed. I haven't watched Nightmare Before Christmas yet, but I will. Well, this spooky season is all about exorcisms, and I really wanted to find a case and dive into that, but I found a couple of stories and had to include a mass exorcism that I read about. And first, before I get started, I gotta give a shout out to Spooky Tales for having a show about one of the stories, and now I'm a huge fan of Spooky Tales. Go check them out. And a huge, and I mean huge, shout out to Total Conundrum for their promo in last week's episode. So I hope everybody goes to check them out. I still have their link listed below. But if you didn't notice at the beginning of this episode, I had a promo for the podcast Let's Talk Turkeys. Now, they are freaking hilarious. Married couple talking about movies, deep diving into them. And the first episode, because I was going through which episodes, which movies have I seen or which movies do I need to have more of an insight on? Well, they have a deep dive into the movie So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers. I could not stop laughing. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love So I Married an Axe Murderer, and I was so happy to see that they had it on their show. And then as I was going through, Let's Talk Turkeys, you guys also have Empire Records on there, and I haven't listened to it yet, but that is another one of my favorite movies. So everybody go check out Let's Talk Turkeys. I have their link listed below. Now, it's always hard for me to kind of start and end the episodes, so I'm just going to jump right in, guys. June 2015, the country of Mexico went through a mass exorcism. Yes, a countrywide exorcism. The Pope Francis, approved this and asked Catholics around the world to pray at the same time to help the country. This was called Exorcismo Magno, which is the Great Exorcism. And this was led by Mexican Cardinal Juan Sandoval Iniguez. And I am so sorry if I mispronounce any names. Apparently, there has been so many reports of people in Mexico needing and requesting exorcisms that the Vatican, the Catholic Church, has now decided, yes, in 2015, we need to do a mass exorcism because all the Catholic churches in Mexico were conducting exorcism on weekly bases. And with that information, I tried to find just one good case on exorcisms in Mexico. I wanted one to really focus and hone in on. And I found so many, but nothing that I would be able to make a whole episode out of. So I'm going to give you a few different stories. And the first one I'm going to start with is the story of the exorcism of Pascuala Garcia. Pascuala was the youngest out of 8 siblings, and she was 15 years old at the time of this story. Her and her family lived in South Mexico, near north of Guerrero. According to Father Benigo Gonzalez, Pascuala was in need of an exorcism. I'm going to call him Father Ben because it's just easier for me. But Father Ben did study in Rome, but he was not given any sort of permission to perform an exorcism on Pascuala. Now, the exorcism on Pascuala took place in October of 1953. Father Ben brought with him 2 photographers to the exorcism, along with a recording team. I couldn't find an article on the exact number of people on his team. Pascuala was seen by her family and others in the town to having superhuman strength, and everyone believed that she was possessed by a demon or something, and that, along with the fact that she started speaking Latin and Greek, which she had no prior knowledge to and has never spoke before. So there's multiple people witnessing her talking in these different languages and having superhuman strength. Her voice also changed. While Pascuala was speaking in Greek or Latin, nobody believed that it was actually her because it just did not sound like her voice. And at times when she would speak in different voices, it seemed to have shook the room. This exorcism took 2 weeks to complete, I guess. Within those 2 weeks, Pascuala's possession actually got worse, and Pascuala was more demon than herself those past 2 weeks. Now, on October 31st of 1953, this was the last day they tried the exorcism. Why would you choose Halloween? I think it's the worst time because the veil is extremely thin, and that is when a lot more things can be more open to anything from the paranormal world. Pascuala was tied up for the protection for herself and for others. I'm sure if she really had superhuman strength, that is why they had to have her tied up. But on that night, she was able to get out of her restraints. She immediately attacked the 2 photographers along with her own dad, Don. She then went after Father Ben. The home then caught fire, and Pascuala jumped out of a 2-story window and ran into the forest. Her family and neighbors searched for her, but she was never found again. All the footage that was from the exorcism was unfortunately lost in the fire, and the family relocated to another town. Father Ben never talked about the case after the incident. However, in 1966, Father Ben had passed away, and his family, sorting through his belongings, found a box, and in that box were some of his writings, a lot on demonology, along with stuff about religion, and some of his own sketches. But there was also photographs in this box, and these photos were the only things saved from the exorcism of Pascuala. I did post some of these photos on my Instagram page, and they are hella creepy. But they were all AI generated. This is a fake story, and I love it. But it goes to show you that exorcisms, the Catholic religion, just having a urban legend like this shows you how prevalent exorcisms, the devil, demons, and Catholicism in general are so big in Mexico and so big in this part of the world. That is the story that I had from eSpooky Tales, and I love the fact that they just this is fake, went off. It was great. But these next stories are not fake. So here we go. The next story is of a young man who was murdered by his friends. Edwin Miguel Juarez Palma was murdered in 2016. He was only 24 years old. He lived in Chihuahua, Mexico, working in a cyber cafe. Sadly, Edwin was found on the streets wrapped in 2 plastic bags. The police knew this was a homicide, although they believed whoever committed the crime tried to make it look like a drug or organized crime related. This was all in Spanish, everything that I was reading, so I couldn't get all the good juicy details, but I'm really trying here, and everything is listed below in the show notes. If you're able to find more, send them my way also. So once the police started investigating and asking Edwin's friends and co-workers about him, they were told by one of Edwin's real true friends that they knew Edwin was murdered, and that friend gave up some names. The names that were given to the police, one of them, if not all of them, had worked with Edwin at the cyber cafe and were known to be actual friends of his. The accused social medias were looked into, and it definitely sent some more red flags to the police. The cops then arrested Omar Garcia, Gustavo Durantes, and Iveth Hernandez. Omar was the owner of the cyber cafe where Edwin had worked. The cops were able to obtain a search warrant for the cafe and then found traces of Edwin's blood in the bathroom. They also saw evidence that the blood had been attempted to be cleaned up. All three were arrested, and once in police custody, the cops got the story of why they murdered Edwin. So the cops were also looking for a fourth person involved with the murder, and they did catch him about 2 to 3 days after arresting the other three. And that person's name was Caleb Loera. And he was actually the ringleader of this whole murder. Caleb, Omar, Gustavo, and Iveth were all part of the Sons of Baphomet cult. They were also called Satanists in other articles. All four believed and made Edwin believe that they could turn him into a vampire. They just had to do a ritual of some kind, and then he would become one. Sadly, Edwin was just tricked by people that he trusted. Omar, Gustavo, and Iveth were the ones to carry out the deed together, while Caleb gave them directions. The trio took Edwin into the bathroom of the cafe and tied his hands behind his back. They then began to hit, kick, stab, and eventually strangle Edwin to death. Police began to believe that there was one of two motives to murder Edwin in such a brutal way, and they tortured this guy. One theory is that the group wanted to make Edwin into a sacrifice for their own cult, their own god, and their own beliefs. They used Edwin's curiosity about vampires, tricked him into thinking that they could actually make him into one. Once they had his trust, and once they had him tied up, that's when they carried out their own sacrifice for the Sons of Baphomet cult. The end game there was just completely unknown, though. What would they have sacrificed him for? I couldn't find a reason. The second theory has to do more on a personal matter. A few days before the murder, Iveth and Omar had a disagreement with Edwin. Could that have been the motive? To kill him, though? An argument days before, and they spent all that time tricking him into thinking that they could make him into a vampire to just kill him in the end? Maybe. During the trial, prosecutors brought up the murderer's social media profiles. Iveth also had a secondary profile used under the name Eleanor Molina, and that profile said that she was an officer in training. Now, Iveth's personal profile picture was that of a heart, and in that heart said the words, "in a relationship with Satan." The other pictures on her profile were associated with Satan and Nazis. One of the pictures that was on her profile was that of Da Vinci's Last Supper, but the 12 disciples were covered in blood. The devil was in the middle where Jesus was supposed to be, and Jesus was laid on the table in front of the disciples on his back. Caleb, his Facebook profile pic was that of a man in full-length black cloak inside a home covered in graffiti. He also went by the name Caleb Balfagor Acosta. I'm assuming Balfagor has something to do with Baphomet. Now, all four were prosecuted and were facing up to 40 years in prison. I think that's low. I don't know how the laws work in Mexico, though. Caleb and Gustavo testified that they were responsible for the murder and were then given 13 years and 4 months in prison. Iveth and Omar received 21 years behind bars. And in every article I could find, all of them still believe that they could have turned Edwin into a vampire. None of them say that they just murdered him or he was a sacrifice for anything. It's freaking nuts, my guys. Like, I just, it's hard for me to get there. I don't know. It's crazy, but unfortunately, Edwin and his family, they have probably the worst type of closure. Now, this next story is just as nuts. It is about religion and mass murder that happened in Panama in 2020. So there is a small village in the jungles of Panama named Nagbe Bugal. I could totally mispronounce that name. So sorry. Now, this also could just be the name of the indigenous group, since it is such a small group, small community in Panama. It is so small that the population is only of about 300 people. Now, a religious sect came into the village to ask the people who lived there to repent for their sins or they would die. This religious sect called themselves the New Light of God Church. There was about 7 to 10 lay preachers who are the ones who went to the villagers to repent for their sins. Now, I've heard of lay preachers before, but I just had to put in a little bit definition here that a lay preacher might have a degree in theology, but is not ordained by the church. So just keep that in mind. This village is very far from modern cities. They have no phones. And even when planes fly over this little village, they can't even see the village because the jungle is so thick, nothing can be seen. There was a makeshift church in the village, and this is where the sect took control. The authorities were called to investigate when 3 villagers escaped and made their way to a hospital. Now, this is legit running and walking away. They had to go miles to get help. They informed the authorities of the atrocities that were being done to the families and neighbors at the village. When authorities arrived, the preachers were in the middle of beating somebody for not repeating, quote unquote, correctly. The authorities also found a fresh grave with about 7 to 8 corpses inside, just about a mile from the church. The corpses that were in this grave were of 6 children, and they were found along with their mother, who was pregnant, and a 17-year-old neighbor. The authorities were able to freeze 14 people being held against their will from this religious cult. 7 of the preachers are being held in prison for 47 years each. 47 years each for these people. Why did this religious cult choose to go here to force people to repent? I could not find a why. The only thing I could say, or the only thing that I could find, was that 1 out of the 7 lay preachers had a vision to force people to repent or die. I could not ignore this story, and it needed to be shared. No one has the right to murder somebody because their religion or God tells them to. And in my opinion, if your God is like that, and then you're following, in my opinion, if your God is telling you to kill people because of whatever reason, you are following the wrong God. Again, my opinion. And this is coming from someone who doesn't believe in one all-powerful God. But I do know that if I did believe in a God or just one God, that God would not be telling me to murder people. Now, this last story, I really wanted to share because it has to do with a Ouija board. And all I can say is that if anyone does play with a Ouija board or is planning on playing with a Ouija board, please, 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 3 times, please remember to close that circle. Make sure to close out the game before putting it away. Say goodbye. Tell them it's over before putting the Ouija board away. All right, so 2014, in a small southwest coast town in Mexico called San Juan Tlaloctinense, I know I misspelled that. Or, yeah, misspoke it, all of it, all misspoken. But anyways, 2014, Southwest Mexico, there was 3 family members, a brother, a sister, and a cousin. Alexandra, age 22, and her brother Sergio, age 23, along with their cousin Fernando, who was 18. They were just having a family visit, chilling, catching up. Now, all 3 of the individuals, along with their family, do believe that they were possessed after playing with this Ouija board. And everyone in the home knew that they were playing with the Ouija board downstairs. The first to show signs of possession was Alexandra. She started growling at her brother and cousin. And not long after Sergio and Fernando went to the parents and the elders of the family, they too started to have something happen to them. They weren't growling, but they lost their hearing and they lost their eyesight. Now, the family was quick to call an ambulance who got to the home and stated that all 3 needed to be tied down due to them constantly moving. There is a video of Alexandra in the ambulance, and to me, she looks very sweaty when others are not, and that video is in the show notes. Alexandra is completely strapped down and is still able to squirm a bit, and her shoulders and neck are constantly moving. The family asks a priest if he could do an exorcism. Once they get to the hospital, they look for the priest there. The priest did refuse since the families were not churchgoers. Now, it turns out that the trio, before playing with the Ouija board, did ingest Brugmansia. I don't know if it was just Alexandra that took it or if all 3 took it, but somebody took it, and I believe it was just Alexandra. So Brugmansia is a part of the nightshade family. This flower can make you hallucinate, cause confusion, delirium, auditory and visual hallucinations. So did these individuals just trip balls? Or did they drag something up from the Ouija board and they became possessed? I don't know. Considering this plant doesn't make you go blind and doesn't make you lose your hearing, and that is what happened to the 2 boys in the story. Now, with Alexandra, this drug could have been her just tripping. She was confused. She could have been hallucinating is why she was growling and looking around all crazy. We don't know. I couldn't find an article stating about what happened after they were all at the hospital, but I did see in multiple articles that the drugs and medications that they were provided did calm all 3 of them down. Now, I don't know what to think about this, all right, Weird Mythic Fam. What the hell is happening in Mexico that the Vatican believes that an entire country needed an exorcism? And how do individuals believe in one God or one type of religion feel like it's okay to kill others because of it? Everyone knows morally that murder is wrong, no matter the reason. It's always going to be murder. Why do people play with Ouija boards and then become possessed? Are they really possessed? Is it something in their head? I don't know. You guys need to help me with this because I love to study religion. All religions. I don't want to judge anyone on their beliefs. But as I said before, I will judge anyone who believes that killing innocent people because their God says to, and they think it's okay, I flat out think it's wrong. And again, that's just how I feel, though. Now, I need to find a few more hauntings, a few more possessions for the next couple episodes, and then I'll go back to my dragon series. So I hope everyone has been enjoying the show this year because I'll be taking a break in the next month or so. Don't trip, guys. I will be back in January. I'm mainly going to take December off. So we just got a few more episodes left of this year. And then 2024 will have more stuff coming to Weird Mythic Podcast. So go ahead. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about these stories. Let me know your thoughts on why some religions believe it's okay to kill people because their religion says so. Or is that something that doesn't happen? You tell me. I haven't really read about a religion telling you to kill people just for the fuck of it. But maybe I'm wrong. Again, let me know in the comments. Send me an email at weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to go to all my social medias and send me all your thoughts and feedback. Weird Mythic Podcast on Twitter. Weird Mythic Podcast on Instagram. Check out my link trees that go to my store merch. Weird Mythic Podcast on YouTube. Weird Mythic on TikTok and TikTok. Please send me stories. Send me your encounters to weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out Let's Talk Turkeys podcast. Bye.